You propped up Hamas so that these innocent people would never get their freedom. You don't then get to use that group as an excuse for why you can slaughter them. Sorry, no reasonable person can defend that. It's objectively true. There have been horrific, ungodly atrocities committed by both sides.
Not both sides. That's a lie. That is a libel. It is not true.
Oh, it's a libel.
There
Okay.
has been Israeli atrocities comparable to Palestinian atrocities. Go ahead. Everybody quiet.
But if you want to ask for the atrocity, it's happening right now in Gaza. So I don't know what point you're trying to prove.
There are now 15,000 dead Palestinian kids. And you're telling me that Israel hasn't committed atrocities? There's 1.1 million people starving to death.
First, how can you support the fact that we have a political system where our elected representatives get rebuked by a foreign country? That is not America first.
Because Joe Biden's an angel. He took $11.2 million from AIPAC, but that didn't affect him at all. Who's the #1 donor for Speaker Johnson? AIPAC. But you guys say no. Ted Cruz, AIPAC. No. Those beautiful angels would never be affected by the bribes, campaign contributions that AIPAC is giving them.
What the Israeli people want for their government to do, if you're going to make that nationalistic argument, fine. Keep my tax dollars out of it. Okay? Let America not be a part of it. We do not have to pick fights in a battle thousands of miles away. It was the advice of all of the founders, they were unanimous on this, that this would be the death of our country if we embarked in these entangling alliances. Okay. That's my position. Right, so America shouldn't be involved.
But if
So this, I don't know how I missed this debate. It's between Dave Smith and Cenk Uygur against these two crazy Zionists. One of them I've seen on Piers Morgan before. The lady, I have no idea who the man is. But I'm super excited to watch this one because Dave Smith is just on a tear lately. So if you enjoy this summarized version of a large 2-hour debate, make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel. And if you really want to help support, become a member. It's only $2.99 a month. It really helps out, and the link will be in the description below. But wait, there's one major announcement I want to make. So I recently hit 50,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I asked you, my loyal subscribers, how I should give back. And you've spoken. You said, I should give back to a pro-Palestine activist. So on Monday, I'm releasing my first giveaway video where I give $500 to a pro-Palestine activist. I'm super excited about it. Please show support and just watch it if you see it. Keep your eyes out for it. Now let's continue.
If you say, hey, Israel does not target civilians, that is, I'm sorry, but I think it's a comical point of view. And so they definitely, and by the way, this is really important though. When Hamas kills a baby, we all condemn it. Israel has now killed 15,000 children. And you know what they did? They crushed their skulls, they lit them on fire, and they burned them to death. And you know how they did that? With 2,000-pound bombs.
One second.
Okay,
Dennis, I want to get back to, so I asked originally what legitimate Palestinian self-defense, if it exists in your mind, looks like, and I would like for Dennis to be able to weigh in.
Legitimate Palestinian self-defense would be, we no longer want to destroy Israel, let's make peace. They were offered a state.
Oh, so no self-defense. Because that's true. Palestinians don't have an army. So if by default they want to defend themselves, that person is just automatically labeled a terrorist because they don't have an army. It's very unfair.
5 times and they rejected it. Bill Clinton thought that Arafat was a phony, and he did everything possible at Camp David to give them a state. Okay, they don't want a state. They want to destroy Israel. And as regards Palestinians, how's this that none of you like to talk about? There are 2 million Palestinians in Israel as Israeli citizens with the same rights as Jews have in Israel. And not only that, they're pro-Israel. They are more pro-Israel since October 7th than they have ever been. And that is according to Arab sources in Israel. They're occupied. Why aren't they occupied? Why are 2 million Arabs in Israel so happy to be in Israel?
Stockholm Syndrome. Look it up. That's what I think.
Why? Answer that question.
A group of Eastern European Jews sat down and said, we've been through so much that we want to form our own country in a land that we've never been to. We want to base it around a language that we don't speak. We want to get international financing. We want to get all this. And they pulled it off. They actually did it, and they made it a really great place to live for the people who are citizens of Israel. That's not really what's in dispute. The point is that there are 5 million people who are under land that they've controlled since 1967. And at a certain point, you can't just claim Like I've heard people argue, this isn't even really an occupation at this point. This is an annexation. They've taken this land and they've basically said
Do you agree that they were given the state 5 times in
No, I do not. No, I do not. And I'll respond to that. Okay,
right,
fine. So let me respond to that.
Yeah.
On Shlomo Ben-Ami, who was the acting foreign minister at the time in these negotiations, he said himself in his book, and he said it on an interview in Democracy Now!, that if he was Arafat, he'd have turned the deal down too. And I highly recommend one book that I'll recommend for everyone to read, The Truth About Camp David, written by Clayton Swisher. This guy was a security guard there. He went around, interviewed everybody involved for 3 years after the fact. I highly recommend people read that book. The truth is that, yes, Bill Clinton threw Arafat under the bus after the negotiations, but Arafat wanted to continue the negotiations. The Israelis said no, and the Americans said no. That's a fact.
Clear. You think the security guard at Camp David is a reliable source, and Clinton made it up that Arafat was responsible for rejecting it?
I don't think that.
The old you don't trust Bill Clinton. It's not like he lied on national television to the United States public, right?
Bill Clinton, I don't think that Jeffrey Epstein's rapist friend is a reliable source.
Okay,
yes,
fine.
agreed.
Okay.
Technically 96% of it, but there's Israeli controls all throughout it, and all these different sections are divided against each other.
So here's the big picture. I'll be very, very quick. The average Israeli would do anything to get the hell out of the West Bank and to have peace with their neighbors. They don't want to occupy Arabs. It was forced upon them. It was forced upon them in 1967. And one final key point: the Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran and others all say all of Israel is occupied land, not the West Bank, not Gaza. Israel is occupied Palestinian land. That is what from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free means. No Israel.
Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, Netanyahu wanted to split those two things up so that he could say, and this is, by the way, in the Israeli press, Times of Israel, Haaretz, etc. And the idea there is so that Netanyahu and the right-wingers in Israel can go, oh, we have no negotiating partner. We have no partner for peace because I don't know which one it is. And I don't, is it Palestinian Authority? Is it Hamas? Oh, look, Hamas is attacking us. Can you believe they're attacking us after 75 years of occupation?
Quickly, Dave, but then I want to get to Batya.
Okay, well,
75 years of occupation. That is exactly the view. I'm glad you said it. That is the view. Israel itself is occupying Palestinian. It has nothing to do with the West Bank and nothing to do with Gaza. You said 75 years. That's how old Israel is.
Yeah,
so, can I clarify? No, because I want two-state solution. I want Israel to be a safe haven.
So what does 75 years of occupation mean?
20 years we're not.
67. What difference does it make?
Oh, it's a big difference.
Well, I just want to notice, because as you're pointing out the strategy of Netanyahu to prop up Hamas, which is widely reported, and I saw you nodding at that. I think there's no denying it at this point.
But hold on. He propped up Hamas and humiliated Abu Mazen.
So this lady, I've seen her on Piers Morgan before, and she's usually very crazy, just very ultra-Zionist. But I guess she wasn't always like that, because this debate is from about a year ago, I'd say, and she's a lot more reasonable in here. So that was a little surprise for me.
Right. So, but let's talk about this a little bit, because I think this all kind of ties together here, and it's one of the points that Dennis just made, where you said, look, Israelis don't want to occupy these territories, and that certainly is true. This is my point about being collectivist versus individualist. That is true for many, many Israelis. There are lots of them who were very happy. They were all behind Yitzhak Rabin. Let's make a deal. We don't want to be occupying these guys anymore, right? But then there's also members of the Likud party and people like Benjamin Netanyahu, and one of the explicit reasons, which he has stated in his own words and many high-level Israelis. I could read quotes to you guys for the next hour if you want. They've all said it. The reason why they wanted to prop up Hamas was not only, as Cenk said, so that the international community would never recognize Palestinians, but so that those Israeli citizens wouldn't be able to put pressure on them. Because if it was the PA in charge, so many people in Israel would say, hey, they want to make a deal, let's make a deal. And so the Likud party cynically, intentionally funded and propped up this terrorist organization that is every bit as bad as you've said, Mr. Prager. I agree with you on that. But here's the deal, right? So if that's true, which we all know is true, if that's true that the Likud party propped up Hamas so they wouldn't face internal pressure and they wouldn't face external pressure to give the Palestinians their freedom, then I'm sorry, that blows up the Israeli defense for this war. That, hey, it sure does suck that we got to kill these innocent people, but we got to get these Hamas. You propped up Hamas so that these innocent people would never get their freedom. You don't then get to use that group as an excuse for why you can slaughter them. Sorry, no reasonable person can defend that.
That was an excellent argument by Dave Smith.
And furthermore, you can point to all of the ways in which Israel has tried to move the civilian population out of the way. They moved 1 million people out of northern Gaza into Khan Yunis and into Rafah and into southern Gaza to get them out of the way. Now, I see you smiling. You're probably thinking to yourself, oh, she's proving my point. It's ethnic cleansing. But here's the point. I mean, it's either the ethnic cleansing charge and the genocide charge are a little bit contradictory, right? Okay. Because if they were trying to commit a genocide and could just simply, eradicate the world of Gaza's Muslim population, surely they would not be moving civilians out of harm's way while they're trying to get rid of the presence of Hamas in a certain place or not.
Clarify. Are you saying that it is more akin to an ethnic cleansing or it's not a genocide?
I think it's really funny to both claim that Israel doesn't do enough to protect civilians and then to use a word like ethnic cleansing, like a nasty, accusatory, racist word.
So then why did you make it?
Because I'm mirroring how your point proves nothing. You're just dodging. You're just dodging the point that I was making about this current war. Yes, it's objectively true. There have been horrific, ungodly atrocities committed by both sides.
Not both sides. That's a lie. Come on. That is a libel. It is not true.
Oh, it's a libel. Okay.
You're other than Deir Yassin, which was during wartime of a village, and absolutely terrible. Tell me where there's been Israeli atrocities comparable to Palestinian atrocities. Go ahead. Everybody quiet. Name it. Or you libeled. Name it.
Libeled?
Or you. Yes.
Wait. So why is the one I wait? Hold on. So the one I said doesn't count. Why? Because it was during wartime.
No, because it is exception.
Oh, so
to make a generalization, Israel commits atrocities and Palestinian commits atrocities. You can't name one other than in 1948 in a village during a war. That is a libel of Israel, and you're dishonoring.
How deluded do you have to be to not realize that Israel has been slaughtering children for like a year and a half? Or even not, like, how deluded do you have to be? Be like, oh, name one other time. Like, are you serious? How about the last 300, 500 days?
Hold on. So, listen, you can keep saying the word libel. That's fine.
It is a libel to morally equate.
Oh, what? So, like, is Israel going to sue Dave Smith? Like, this guy's a clown.
Atrocities on both sides. That is a libel.
What do you mean by libel?
Libel means, Israel is as guilty of atrocity as the Palestinians is a libel of Israel. I don't know why that's complex.
Okay. Hold on. Well, I was asked the question here. Well, I'm just saying, if wars don't count, then fine. But if you want to ask for the atrocity, it's happening right now in Gaza. So I don't know what point you're trying to prove.
So these are atrocities.
Yes.
Oh, I see. So this is the same as blowing up school buses of children. You
I didn't say it's the same.
Equating them.
No, I didn't.
Then you're using the same term.
You said that. I didn't say that. Okay, I'll be very, very quick. My point was that you mentioning an atrocity that happened in the past did not counter the point that I just made, that this destroys Israel's defense for this war. And I just made the point that I could name atrocities too. You're now claiming that I'm equating things that I never said were the same and accusing me of libel, which is tired. Sir, respectfully, it's a tired accusation.
They both commit atrocities is tired. Okay, that's what's
no, that's
tired.
a fact. That's a fact.
That's a fact.
Okay, go ahead, Cenk.
Yeah, well, he lives in a different planet. Okay, so first the genocide thing. Let me just finish that real quick,
and then live on a different planet.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So first of all, just finishing up the genocide real quick. Every genocide defender who says the same thing, and I don't mean it in a personal way, guys. I just mean that the Serbs literally at the International Criminal Court said, well, we didn't target them because they're Muslims. We targeted them because they were there and they were against us. The Turks said, we didn't target them because they're Armenians. It's because they struck us first and they did this rebellion and they were killing Turkish civilians. What the hell were we supposed to do? We had to move them and we had to kill them. So we had a right to defend ourselves. You're mirroring exactly what every defender of a genocide says. You're moving them, you're killing them, and you're targeting targeting
Germans, correct?
Palestinians.
Did
That is a
America-
genocide.
Did America target Germans?
Okay, so hold on. I haven't even. That's just a quick point on genocide. I didn't even get to the actual thing because he's making a point about.
Your mate doesn't agree with the word genocide.
Okay,
it's
I don't
a difference
care.
between. That's fine.
Okay,
I'm just
so I
telling you.
don't care at all.
That's
Okay, so there's a lot we don't agree on. He's a libertarian and progressive. So
We disagree on everything. It's just this is so terrible. We agree on this.
yes, over 85% of Palestinians have been displaced. There's 1.1 million people starving to death, and you still can't see it. And that's what's amazing about bias, that you look at how they have killed over 33,000 people. Okay, say 6,000 as Hamas, say 9,000 as Hamas. You still have 25,000 dead women and children, and you go, what atrocities? They have kill zones. Why did they kill the 3 Israeli hostages? Because they were in a kill zone. In a kill zone, they murder everyone in the kill zone. There's sniper bullets in kids' heads because they were in a kill zone. They've killed more journalists than all other conflicts this year combined. They've killed 3 times the amount of humanitarian aid workers. The World Central Kitchen, they murdered those people. There was a 6-year-old who was stuck. They told the IDF, we are going to get her. The IDF said, okay. The IDF goes and finds her. They'd already killed her, the rest of her family members in that car. They then killed not only the 6-year-old girl, but everyone in the ambulance that came to rescue them. And you're saying you can't see a single Israeli atrocity?
There's another story as well. See, I see Sagar there, and he's part of a show called Breaking Points. They actually covered a story. It was unbelievable. There was 3 Red Crescent trucks driving around with their lights on, with their hazards on. They're like Red Cross, like Red Crescent, just goods trying to help people out that are dying. They're crossing a checkpoint. Israelis literally opened fire at them, killed all of them. And they literally lied about them, saying that, oh, these guys were just Hamas. We didn't know what they were doing. They had their lights off. We were scared, blah, blah, blah. They opened fire on all of them, killed all of them. And then not only did they bury them in a mass grave, they buried the trucks in them, the ambulance trucks as well. And just buried it all in a ditch, covered it up. Later on, other crew members came to find out. They're like, where did they go? What happened? And then when they went to bury the bodies out so that they could, bury them somewhere else, they found one of them had a phone on him, and he recorded the whole thing, and all of it was a lie. And they basically got proven that Israelis just opened fire on them for no reason. Literally killed all the humanitarian workers and just dug them up in a grave, them and their trucks, just to hide the evidence. That's the only reason why you would do that. They know exactly what they're doing, and they know they could get away with it.
And one last thing, they have kept these people. Hold on. And the last atrocity is keeping 5.5 million Palestinians prisoners. And Prager says, oh, not 75 years, only 57 years we've kept these people prisoners. And think about the absurd claims that you guys are making.
A member of the United States military who teaches at West Point said that Israel has been the most moral army in urban warfare that he has ever. You laugh at him. That's correct. That's right. You're allowed to laugh at him. He did write it, and so did the head Kemp, Richard Kemp, the head of all British forces in Afghanistan, said that Israel, the IDF, is the most moral army he has ever encountered.
Every president of my lifetime, Trump might be an exception to this, I'm not sure, but everyone else wanted a 2-state solution, including, believe it or not, George W. Bush. After 9/11, Colin Powell, who was the wisest member of the George W. Bush administration, I don't think anyone would argue against that, he still sold the war in Iraq, even though he didn't believe in it, so he'll have to talk to his maker about that. But he told George W. Bush right after 9/11, you got to do a 2-state solution, and you got to do it now, for 2 reasons. Number one, you got record high approval ratings. This is the time to get it done. But more importantly, because he knew this is what drives so much of the terrorism problem that we have. It's not that Iran sees us as the same as Israel. It's that they recognize that we've been propping them up. We're the ones who shoots down the resolutions at the UN. We're the ones who funds them and arms them. Okay? And what happened? George W. Bush couldn't get it done. It was Tom DeLay. John Mearsheimer's done great reporting on this. It was Tom DeLay in the House who told him, you'll be a one-term president if you even try to do this, okay? Every American president has wanted a 2-state solution. Again, maybe not Donald Trump, but the rest of them all did, and they couldn't get it done. All I'm saying is if you're America first, how can you support the fact that we have a political system where our elected representatives get rebuked by a foreign country. That is not America first.
The reason he would have been a one-term president is because the American people would have rebelled, right? Not because Bibi Netanyahu would have come here.
Well, what about the lobby? What about AIPAC? What about them spending millions of dollars against him and defaming him and making sure that the other candidate wins? Like, it's not that simple. Lobbying is very powerful in our country.
No, I'm sorry if you're going to ask that. No, it's also because there's a giant, powerful lobby advocating on behalf of a foreign government who makes it their mission to ruin the lives of anybody who's critical of that foreign government. That's a part of it too. By the way, the evangelical Christians, that's also a big part of it.
So yeah. The idea, can I just need to respond.
We gotta get Dennis in here. Okay.
I'll yield.
All right.
Then I'll speak. I'll yield and then speak.
Okay.
Well, the idea that some lobby is the reason that an idea has power in the United States is completely backwards. The lobby gets its power because it is representing where, the majority of Americans are at. A lobby on its own, you think the NRA...
You don't think it's shaping it a little bit?
You think that the NRA is the reason that people have guns in America? Really? You don't think that?
No, the NRA are a bunch of sellouts.
Sorry, Jay.
No, but the idea, it's a very good parallel.
Americans have overwhelmingly supported Israel. If there was no AIPAC, they still would have supported Israel.
So then why do we need an AIPAC?
Because
why do we need an NRA?
Yeah, exactly.
We don't.
All right, fine. So
I don't think we need AIPAC either. Israel would be just fine without it because the American people have its back.
Whether we need it or not is not the question. The question is, why do they exist, given the fact, which is fair, why do they exist? Because people lobby politicians on behalf of what many Americans support. Americans to this day and every poll still support Israel, as it happens. So the arguments that have been offered here, it really is a different planet.
No, but how many lobbies work for a foreign government? That's only unique to AIPAC.
Just for the record, this may come as a shock to the two of you at least, perhaps many listening. And I would put my hand on a Bible, I would take a lie detector test, because obviously there's no way I could prove this. When I remember sitting at the edge of my bed watching this, and I never watched TV. I watched Arafat and Rabin shake hands, and I had tears in my eyes. That is how badly I wanted peace. I supported a two-state solution nearly all of my life, certainly since the Six-Day War when I was a college kid. I have always supported it. I no longer support it, just like nearly every peace activist in Israel no longer supports it. And we don't support it thanks to Hamas and thanks to the PLO, because they have made it clear if Israel leaves the West Bank, they will get another genocidal, if you want to use the term, a genocidal terror group of Nazi-like Hamas people running it. Why have there not been elections? Why is the PLO not allowed elections for, 16 years? Because they're afraid Hamas will win.
So Hamas is so horrible, and I know you guys would both say, Iran finances Hamas, and so they're evil for that. What about the government of Israel doing it? Do we have anything to say about that?
Right. So when you are,
So during the debate, Dave Smith did bring this point up 5 times. Dennis did not respond to it at all, just kept going around it.
I'll give you an answer. The United States supported the second greatest mass murderer in history after Mao, Stalin, in order to defeat Hitler. It is very common to support scum to defeat bigger scum.
So who's the bigger scum than Hamas?
The bigger scum was those who wanted to destroy it.
Ouch. So who's the bigger scum? All of the Palestinians, Dennis? That was a horrible point. In my opinion, Dennis Prager got destroyed in this debate. And even in a later interview, Sagar actually said the same thing, the one who's managing the debate right
Israel.
now.
Okay.
But isn't that Hamas?
You're right, so it's both.
No, that
invalidates your argument.
No, it doesn't at all. You just have no argument. Who's the bigger scum? Who's worse than the Nazis?
Please.
You're right. Other Nazis.
And also, the U.S. did not complain about them later on the whole time. So right now, Israel is funding Hamas, then also complaining about them.
Okay.
You're right. They're equivalent. I don't understand. Why is that? Why is that a thing?
Just not an answer.
Batya needs to respond. She's been trying to respond, and then we have to bring it back to the Iran question too.
I have two main responses to that. I think it's a really important point. I don't disagree that it was a disastrous, in hindsight, disastrous. At the time, I thought it was disastrous because, as you say, it's not just, it wasn't that Netanyahu was giving Israeli taxpayer funds to Hamas, but he was facilitating the transfer of cash from Qatar. Okay, so let's just be very, like,
sent the head of Mossad to Qatar to make sure the cash came back in, specifically for the reasons of keeping Hamas in power, so he didn't have to give them a
but
state.
it's not that he is giving them the money, right? It's not coming from Israel. I just want to be clear. You know, there are a couple things I want to point out about that. The first is he didn't do that because he thought Hamas was capable of October 7th. He did that because he thought they had no power, that they had no real ability.
He thought he could control the height of the flame, were his words.
Just hold on, Dave, please.
Yes, he thought that they were less of a threat to Israelis than the potential of a Palestinian state led by Abu Mazen. And as a result, he humiliated routinely Abu Mazen, who represented the non-violent camp. That it was a criminal at the time, and in hindsight, even more so. But to say that he was propping up the people who then would do October 7th, I don't think that is fair. Not because I
didn't say that. Yeah.
Because he was doing it out of a complete misunderstanding about what they were capable of.
So I like that Dennis acknowledged that Netanyahu and Israel did prop up Hamas. So there you go. Now we know.
Truth. But she gave the answer. He did not know what monsters he was supporting.
Oh, he didn't know who Hamas was? Come on. Okay, and it's because he he wants a permanent occupation. And I'm glad that Dennis just acknowledged he also wants a permanent occupation.
No, I don't. I'm not for two states now. I pray for two states eventually.
Eventually.
Okay, yes,
so,
but not now.
More years,
not now.
75 more years,
it will
100 more years.
No.
How long should they be your servants?
As soon as Hamas...
your prisoners. How long would you like to keep the prisoners?
They're not prisoners. Okay. As soon as Hamas...
They're literally prisoners.
As soon as Hamas gives up, surrenders...
No, because that's his position. He just said he doesn't want it.
When were we prepared to make peace with Germany? When the Nazis came out of power. If the Nazi-like Palestinians are out of power, I would have peace the next day.
Yeah. Okay, that's all right. So he says, okay, an indefinite occupation where we will keep the Palestinians under our thumb and our boot, and until they know their role, then maybe we'll consider freeing them. But until then, they will have to serve us. Okay, very Christian of you, or whatever it is that people say these days. Okay, so speaking of Christians, there's a giant Christian Zionist movement here, and they are also part of the reason why the polling turned out okay for Israel throughout a lot of our history. But by the way, they are now greatly dwindled, and that is why the polling for Israel in America is not as good anymore. And by the way, the fact that Israel has made Netanyahu has made a deal with the devil, with those Christian Zionists, is abhorrent, because if you push them on what they plan to do, they said, oh yeah, we love Israel, because then Jesus is going to come back after Israel.
They never say that.
They definitely say it. They've said it 1,000 times. Okay. And then he's going to murder all the Jews.
I'm a Jew.
Congratulations with doing a devil.
Doesn't know what he's
deal
talking
with
about.
the devil.
Okay. Continue.
Okay.
Jack.
So if you guys are saying that the $100 million that AIPAC is promising to spend in the next election is not relevant to the politicians, that these politicians are angels, they would never consider millions of dollars given to them in bribes, I mean campaign contributions. And that actually determines almost 95% of elections, not the AIPAC money, but lobbyist money overall. That they don't take that into account because Joe Biden's an angel. He took $11.2 million from AIPAC, but that didn't affect him at all. He's the #1 donor that got money from AIPAC in United States Senate history. Who's the #1 donor for Speaker Johnson? AIPAC. But you guys say no. Ted Cruz, AIPAC. No. Those beautiful angels would never be affected by the bribes, I mean campaign contributions that AIPAC is giving them. And by the way, it is not just AIPAC. Guys, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, they love this war. Are you kidding me? A giant war in the Middle East, they're going to make so much money. You're talking about the oil companies are going to make billions, maybe trillions from this. All of those different lobbyists are bribing both the Republicans and the Democrats. So there is massive money that is going into this potential war.
Mangled language. I say raped, and people get angry. Well, aren't you raping the word rape? No, look up rape in the dictionary. There are two definitions, like the rape of the rainforest is not a sexual act. They have raped the word genocide. They have raped the word racism. They have raped all of these words that actually once meant something. And that's what is being done now. This is not...
What about the rape of the word anti-Semitism?
Genocide that Israel is engaged in. the number of Palestinians has increased by 5-fold since Israel was created. If that's a genocide, we should all suffer from such a genocide and have such growth of our populations.
See, again, that's such a misrepresentation. A lot of the reasons why the Gaza population has increased so much is because they got moved over from different parts of what used to be Palestinian settlements and just got pushed over into Gaza. They got kicked out of their homes, and that's why the population has increased.
Regards Iran, so this is a legitimate question. Is it in the United States' interest, purely as Americans, that Iran thrive or that there be a regime change? Let's say we can't do a regime. I understand that. I'm asking in theory, what would be more pro-American? A pro-American Iran, which is a very powerful country and a particularly intelligent people, and what would be better? Having these vile theocrats from the Middle Ages who kill women and arrest women who aren't properly dressed in public. This is what you guys want us to say it doesn't matter? We left Afghanistan, which I assume you guys were supporting. We should leave Afghanistan. I did not support leaving Afghanistan because I knew the hellhole that the Taliban would create. And I don't know why America first means it's okay if people who want to destroy us take over a country. I don't understand why that's America first.
I'll amend that to say all of the neoconservatives, Benjamin Netanyahu, the people who supported us going into the war in Iraq, well, what was the effect of that? We handed the country essentially over to Iran, and all of this wisdom, which was so ridiculous, so you had Saddam Hussein, a longtime enemy of Iran. They fought a brutal war together where 500,000 people on each side died. By the way, America backed Saddam Hussein while he was doing the most vicious things that he had ever done. He was a Sunni minority oppressing a Shiite majority, and their scheme was, if we overthrow this guy, this will put pressure on Iran to be more democratic. And all that happened was it gave more regional influence to Iran. And then, actually, the attempted regime change in Syria that Obama failed on for multiple reasons, I think actually kind of similarly to what you guys were talking about, he was sending these weapons into the anti-Assad rebels. They saw, as John Kerry admitted, the rise of ISIS. Obama called them JV. I think it's very similar to the way Benjamin Netanyahu looked at Hamas. I can control the height of the flame. And then they invaded Iraq, and he was like, hey, you guys weren't supposed to do that part, right? But what happened, what was the effect of that? Was that the Syrians were more reliant on Iran than ever before. What was the effect on the Saudi-U.S. war in Yemen? That the Houthis became more reliant on Iran than ever before. So yes, we would all like this magical scenario where Iran becomes a free country, but in reality, the policies that Israel, as well as most of the neoconservatives in this country have pushed, have been to the opposite effect, has only made Iran more powerful and more influential in the region.
Go ahead.
What is the one thing that Israel has done that has been a spectacular success in terms of all these conflicts? Was the peace deal with Egypt. Peace actually works. Since that, not a single bomb has gone between Egypt and Israel. And Egypt has complied with the peace treaty. So the idea that, peace won't work because those Palestinians or those Hamas guys, they're just going to do it forever and ever. That's exactly what they said about the Egyptians. And it wasn't true. Peace leads to peace. War leads to more war.
It's not a good point. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I wish it were a good point. I do. I really wish. It's wishful thinking. The Israelis gave a piece of land, I think it's larger than Israel, back to Egypt, filled with oil, a great buffer in case of a war, and they gave every inch back to Egypt because they trusted Egypt. That's why, and they especially the president at the time. So that's the proof of the point. Israel is not aching to keep Arab land. It is aching for peace. Egypt is the point that makes my point. If they trusted that the Palestinians would act like the Egyptians, there would have been peace a long time ago.
Would they have given back their land then? Is that what he's saying?
Well, I think,
But Dennis, you know that back then historically, the Israelis did not think, the Egyptians are wonderful, we can trust them.
They did.
Listen,
under what was his name? The great Egyptian leader. No, the great Sadat.
But he was not a great leader until he got to the peace treaty.
Because he came to speak in the parliament. That's what changed
Okay,
their
fine.
minds.
Well, look,
When an Egyptian leader comes to the Jewish parliament.
Listen, the fact is that, and as a libertarian, I don't love this, but the fact is also that the U.S. bribed both Egypt and Israel with $3 billion a year forever. But no, look, the reality is that, Cenk, you have to at least admit there's a point here. Egypt and Israel went to war 4 times in 25 years or something like that, and they made a peace deal and they gave it up. Now, all I'm saying is that there's a lot of people today, and it's totally understandable that people today would go, look, things have gotten so bad between the Israelis and the Palestinians that they're just never going to be able to live in peace. But at the same time,
no one says never, but they can't.
Okay, let me just finish my point. At the same time, France and Germany are right next to each other, man. England and Ireland are right next to each other. And that should at least be maybe something all of us could agree on, that it's not that crazy. And by the way, you could go from being like horrific atrocities to a very short period after that being relatively peaceful with each other. And I do think Cenk at least has somewhat of a point that they did make this land concession for peace deal and it stuck. And that could be, and you're not going to tell me there's not a radical Islam problem in Egypt.
What would you want Israel to have done on October 8th?
Okay,
I'll answer it.
Yes, I do want to hear an answer.
I want answers from both of you because it's a great question.
Okay, so I think
Just a reminder, make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel. When you do that, it helps this video go out to a larger audience. Please do your part. We're changing minds out here. And please keep a lookout for my first giveaway video on Monday. I think you guys will really, really enjoy it. Now let's finish this video.
the most important thing to understand is kind of what we were talking about before, right? Is like what, and I'm answering your question here, but just saying, keeping in mind what was going on before October 7th, which was for years, as we've all conceded here, that the Israeli government was propping up Hamas and also had this very arrogant attitude, like we can control the height of the flame, like Obama talking about ISIS, they're JV.
You're not answering my question.
I literally said,
what should Israel have done?
See, this is, now you're just trying to bully me. I literally said, let me just give you a little bit of background. No, because I'm leading into what the answer is. So again, my point is, well, first of all, no more doing that. No more propping up Hamas and underestimating them. Listen, the idea, October 7th was not even like 9/11. It wasn't even like, oh, there was planes used as missiles into a building. We never could have seen this coming. They can say that intelligence report was on Bush's desk, but he got thousands of intelligence reports. And it's not like it said the World Trade Center. What happened on October 7th was the thing that Israelis should have been concerned about the whole time. So number one, all it takes was not relying on the robot machine guns and having a military presence at the border. So immediately secure your borders. Number two, a real investigation into what happened on October 7th. What were the failures here? How did it take so long for the response time? Not this Netanyahu, we'll wait till the war's over and then we'll figure out, like it's not the time. No, I think after that, Netanyahu should resign in disgrace. Then, in terms of the actual response, as Israel always did before Netanyahu, they always dealt with the terrorism problem with assassination campaigns, with special operations. Gaza is the most monitored place on the planet. They can pick these guys off even more important than that is immediately. Let me finish my answer. Yeah, but those are the guys they're still negotiating with to try to get the hostages out. The other thing is the number one priority should have been the hostages. And it is self-evident that when you're fighting a war this way, your number one priority is not to get your people out. Look, Israel has all the chips. They got a ton of hostages, prisoners of their own that they could exchange for the hostages there, which is how they've gotten the hostages they've gotten so far out. And then after all of that, after the hostage swaps, after assassination campaigns and special ops, you come to the table with a real two-state agreement again. You rise above it. Instead of turning the world against you, you win the world over by saying, listen, we took a big loss. We're going to kill or get the people who did this to us, but we are not just going to make life hell for the people of Gaza anymore. We're going to offer them their freedom. And I think there was a real opportunity to do that.